Welcome to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. Here we talk about weight, body image, emotional eating, and other personal development topics. I'm your host, Amy Beltran, CEO and founder of Irresistible University and irresistibleicing.com. Let's jump in and start with today's episode. Welcome back to the Irresistible You podcast. Today we are talking about how journaling, the act of journaling, can boost your confidence. And as many of you know, I am actually launching my very own journal, the Irresistible You journal. And it's actually available on Amazon very soon. And I've had several questions around what do you mean? What do you mean? How can journaling help me with my confidence? How can journaling help me with my body image? And that's what today's episode is all about. Is I want to talk about exactly that thing. So, if you're anything like me, you are probably your own worst critic. Somewhere along the way in your life, you were told something, you heard something, or you developed this thought process about yourself and about your body. And because of that, your self-confidence or self-esteem has probably been shattered into a million different pieces. These things normally don't happen all at once, although they can. But it probably has happened from a series of events, a series of comments, a series of things that you've gone through in your life. And if you're the type of woman who struggles with body image, these negative comments that you've heard about your body, or even about the bodies of other women that look like you, for example, these comments, they stick with you. And they then start to manifest into your inner voice. And that inner voice that is you, that's now you telling yourself how, you're too fat, you're too ugly, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not rich enough, you're not successful enough, whatever that is. So that's the way this kind of comes together, where we develop this really negative inner voice. And being that we're all human nature says that we're going to remember those negative things way more than we remember the positive. So how many times can you look back on your life and remember something horrible that someone said to you? You probably remember what you were wearing, where you were, who that person was, what they looked like, and the feeling that it gave you. But if I asked you, can you remember all the positive things that someone has said about you? You probably don't have that same um like memory of that, where you can remember so many of the different details, because we tend to focus on the negatives versus the positives. And that's just how we are as human beings. And you know, um developing this inner voice, I think of it as um almost like a defense mechanism in a way, because if we have this inner dialogue with ourselves and we've been hearing these negative things for years and years from other people, society, media, about our bodies, how we're not thin enough, how we're not good enough, we create our own inner voice, our own inner dialogue, as a form of protection. Because if we can say those things to ourselves first, well, maybe it won't sting as bad when, someone else says those things to you. And I know that sounds really crazy, but the things that our mind does subconsciously, it doesn't always make the most sense, right? So this inner voice that we have when it comes to body image and the things that we talk about here on Irresistible You, I call this the inner fat girl. And we've talked about this, I don't remember which episode it was, in several blog posts, but the inner fat girl, she can live inside of us no matter what size we are or what weight we are on the scale. And that's why I always say, like, you could lose 150 pounds and still have that inner fat girl inside of you. Like, she doesn't really go away unless you do the work to put her to sleep, right? To put her to bed, to put her over in the corner and don't worry about her anymore. So this inner fat girl voice is that voice that's always going to remind you, hey, you look too fat. What? Who do you think you are wearing that outfit, girl? You have so much weight to still lose. I don't know who you think you are. And even though you lose the weight, your body's never going to be perfect. You're still going to have fat rolls and you're still going to have stretch marks and you're just gross. And she's constantly telling you these things that you're never going to be good enough no matter how many pounds you lose. And I can attest to this because, as you know, I've never been at what we call goal weight. But when I lost the most weight that I'd ever lost in my life, and I was probably like 20 to 30 pounds away from that goal weight. And people were telling me, oh my God, you look so good. What have you been doing? You've lost so much weight. And I could not 100% accept those compliments because when they would say those things, I would say something like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. But, I still have, 30 pounds to go, or I still have a long way to go. And I didn't really believe those people because I didn't believe it about myself. I would think, how could this person see me in this body that's still fat and think that I look amazing? They're just lying to me. They're just trying to make me feel better or, but what if they could see what was under my clothes? What if they saw this fat come jiggling out of my Spanx? Like, you think these things because you don't believe it about yourself because you, even though you've lost, let's say 80 pounds, you still see yourself as that fat girl when you were at your highest weight. And that feeling will not just go away because now you're at this made up goal weight number, right? Because even if you're at your goal weight and you haven't done the work on yourself and your mind, you're still going to have those same thoughts. You're still going to pick your body apart. You're still going to find something that is, in your mind so wrong about yourself that no matter how much weight you lose, it's never going to be enough. It's never going to be good enough. And that's why someone that can weigh 300 pounds can have a shit ton more confidence than someone that weighs 120 pounds because weight at the end of the day, it doesn't have anything to do with your confidence and how you feel about yourself because that is work that you have to do internally. It's a mindset thing. And so the other thing about that too, real quick, is when someone pays you a compliment, this is something that's like a side note that I want you to think about because this is part of working on your confidence. If someone takes the time to pay you a compliment, I want you to do one thing. I want you to say, thank you. That's it. No dot, dot, dot. No but. Thank you so much. That's it. Because that person went out of their way to tell you something nice, and it's not up to you to make up a story about what their actual intentions are or are not. Okay? Cool. We're going to move past that. But so yeah, so when I realized at this point on my personal development journey how much of this emotional weight I was still carrying around with me, I knew that something had to change. I knew that I had to do something different because clearly what I was doing with the yo-yo dieting and using food like a drug and the up and down, it wasn't working. Because even if I lost, and I had lost a tremendous amount of weight, it wasn't helping me with that emotional weight component, right? That self-confidence, that mindset piece. So when I went on this personal development journey where the whole Irresistible You concept and framework essentially has come from over the years, when I went on this journey, a big part of what I started doing was journaling. Yeah, journaling. And I know some people, you probably haven't pulled out a journal and wrote things down since maybe middle school or high school when you had to do that, like English class, sometimes we had to do this. And this is not that type of journaling. So, and this is not planning in a planner with dates and times and things to do. This is journaling. And we're going to talk about all this a little bit more. So, something just as simple as jotting down those inner fat girl thoughts that were in my head, it was revolutionary to how I started to view my body and the level of confidence that I now have. And I know that that can happen for you as well, because when we keep all of these thoughts and feelings, bottled up inside of our head, and we're only saying them, in our head to ourselves, and we're not providing a place for those thoughts to get out so that we can make room for more and better, the cycle just keeps continuing on and on and on, and it creates more anxiety, more stress, more emotional eating, more hate, self-hate, hating your body. And this journaling as a like a personal development self-help tool, it really will make a difference in how you start to view your body, how your confidence will increase. And I'm going to talk about 5 different ways that journaling can boost your confidence. So let's jump into that, into those 5 things. So, number 1, journaling clears out the mental clutter and chaos inside of your brain. When we talk about body image, there's people that probably think that's just a vanity issue. Oh, you're just too worried about what you look like. Well, body image is so much more than just a vanity issue. It's a deep rooted issue that will infiltrate all areas of your life. And when that inner fat girl is constantly telling you how worthless you are, how fat and ugly you are, your mind, it really doesn't have a lot of space for much else. So that has a domino effect, right? Because when you can't stand your body, when you think that you're disgusting, that turns into, well, I as a person am completely worthless. And now this is affecting your ability to be successful in your job, in your relationships. And it puts this big wet blanket over your ability to have fun and enjoyment in life. And when you're so miserable in your own skin, these types of thoughts, they literally dominate all of these areas of your life that we just talked about. And I know that it feels like you'll never be able to get out from under it because it's so heavy. It's that emotional weight, and it is really, really heavy. You can get out from under it, but what we have to do is we have to remove all of that mental clutter and chaos in our mind. And so, in a way to do that is journaling. Journaling is this like safe place, free of judgment, that you can write down all of your inner thoughts and dump your brain. Because when I open up my journal and I write things down, no one else has to see this but me. This is my safe and private place to do that. And it seems so simple, but just the act of writing those things down, it's like it releases the thought and it makes room for positivity and better things and more confidence in your life. So, number 1, the way that journaling helps with your confidence is it's going to clear out the mental clutter and chaos in your brain. Okay? So, that's number 1. Number 2 is that journaling starts to silence the inner fat girl that we talked about. Because when you are able to make that space in your brain, right? Because we've got the clutter out, we've made more space in our head. Now we're making more room for positive thoughts, for compliments to ourselves, because we're making that space. We are now starting to silence the inner fat girl, because now when you hear yourself saying, or the inner fat girl saying, you're too fat to wear that dress. Who do you think you are? You're going to not easily, it's going to take time. Let me make that clear. You're going to be able to come back at that and say, no, I may not be at my goal weight. I may not be at what society thinks is the ideal perfect body, but who cares? Because I look amazing and I'm going to rock the hell out of this dress. Right? So journaling helps to start silencing the inner fat girl, so that if you're on this weight loss journey, right? When you get down to where you want to be, to that goal weight, you're able to fully appreciate the weight loss and accept the compliments and not still be picking and pulling yourself apart, right? And it gives yourself self-love and compassion at your higher weight, to love yourself enough to take care of yourself. So all that good stuff, right? So we're going to silence the inner fat girl by, whipping out our journals and writing these thoughts down. Number 3 is that journaling, if you're listening to this, you probably are. If you are an emotional eater or a binge eater, it's a high possibility that you've been doing that most of your life or for a period of time without really realizing that you were doing it and not knowing what was triggering that. And so when we start to journal how we're feeling, our emotions, those inner thoughts, it's a place where you can then start to identify what some of those triggers are for turning to food, for the emotional eating, for the binge eating. Because a lot of times, you know, we think that we're craving all this food, these carbs, and this, what we call bad food. But it, a lot of times, is because of something bigger going on in our life that we don't want to deal with. And so when you start journaling and really keeping a log of these feelings and things that you're going through, you can start to go back and identify trends and be like, oh my gosh, that's a trigger for why, I wanted to eat a whole bag of chocolate, or I wanted to eat a whole cake by myself. So journaling will help to start identifying the triggers behind emotional eating, because emotional eating is always a symptom, a bigger symptom of something else that's going on in your life that you don't want to deal with. So number 1, it's going to help clear the mental clutter. Number 2, we're going to silence the inner fat girl. And number 3, we're going to identify emotional eating triggers with journaling. Number 4 is journaling will help to increase your awareness and your mindfulness. So a practice that I do every single morning, it's how I start my day. And if this doesn't happen, I swear to you, my day just kind of like goes crazy. But what I like to do in the mornings before I do anything else, before I check the phone, check the emails, the computer, blah, 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 is I like to take out my journal. And this act of writing things down, of getting all the clutter and the gunk out of my head, it allows me to be more mindful and self-aware of how I'm feeling, of the things that are bothering me. And when you do that, that's why I always say a lot of the stuff that I teach, it's not linear step by step, because when you start increasing your awareness of your feelings and having that mindfulness about it, that is also helping with the emotional eating. Because if I know, all right, I got a lot going on, I really don't want to have to do this thing that's going on today, and I'm fully aware of it, being self-aware that that's going to be a trigger for me, then I can plan better with my meals and my food. Because when you don't have that awareness and you're not in a place where, like, all right, I know I had this thing coming up, I know this is really bothering me, you're just going through the motions and ordering the fast food and turning to the high sugar carbs and all the things that lead to that emotional binge eating. Because when we're emotional eating, I know for sure you're not emotionally eating salad. That's not what's happening, right? We want those comfort foods. So journaling is a great place to increase the awareness of your life, to increase the awareness of what's going on, and it gives you a chance to um, take the time to reflect and develop this just deeper understanding of yourself and what you're going through at the moment. Because too often we're just, barreling through the days. We're not stopping to think about what even happened today or what's going to happen tomorrow. Obviously things are going to come up at the last minute and we're going to, get surprised by things, good and bad. But when we can be more self-aware, that leads to more confidence in yourself, because you're taking more control over what you can control, right? And your emotions, while it seems like you can't really control those, you actually can when you're self-aware. So taking the time to record, the things that are going great, the things that you need to work on, it's just going to overall increase that awareness, which leads to increasing the confidence in yourself and your body and the way that you see yourself. So to recap again, we're going to clear the mental clutter. It's going to help silence the inner fat girl. It's going to identify your emotional eating triggers, and it's going to increase your awareness. And so number 5, when we talk about how can daily journaling boost your confidence and your body image, number 5 is I want to say that journaling allows you to be more grateful for where you are right here and now in your journey. And that gratitude piece is really important because when you are overweight and unhappy with your body, or even if you're not overweight and you're just unhappy with the way that you see yourself, you have no space for anything close to being grateful or gratitude, right? And when you're not grateful for where you are right here, right now on your journey, it's going to be really hard to have that same level of gratitude when you get where you want to be, right? Because that ability to love yourself and love your body, it doesn't just happen like this. It happens because you're doing these things that we're talking about to work on yourself from the inside, to set that foundation so that no matter what you look like, no matter how much you weigh, no matter, you could wake up tomorrow with a skin condition, for example. Like, so no matter what happens to you, you have the ability to feel confident and to love yourself no matter where you are. And a way to get to that level of confidence is by having gratitude for where you are right now. So if you're sitting there and you just feel so big, so fat, so overweight, you feel, I know that feeling where you don't feel good and your own body, you just kind of mentally want to escape it because it just feels so horrible to sit in it. I want you to start sitting in it and being more aware and being more mindful and being able to say, okay, my body may not be where I want it to be. However, I'm grateful that, I have 2 legs to get me around and take me places. Or, I have hands that allow me to type on the computer so that I can do my job and get paid. So it's those things like that that I think oftentimes we definitely take for granted. And if you can start somewhere with having that gratitude around your body, it's going to lead to that self-confidence, right? So for me, when I got pregnant, it was like a big journey for me in self confidence and body image, because when I first found out, as I've shared with you on some of my blog posts, I was just floored because I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can handle the weight gain. I'm going to get stretch marks again. I'm so scared. And I had to turn all that around because I didn't have a choice. I had this other human being inside my body that could feel my stress, that would feel my anxiety, and I would pass that on. And I didn't want to do that. And so that allowed me to start saying, wow, my body's not perfect. I'm not traditionally thin or skinny by any means, but my body's pretty damn amazing because it's allowing me to take care of this baby and to grow this healthy, happy little girl inside of me. And so I was able to say and be so grateful for that, and even before I got pregnant and I was on this journey, and I was like, I'm so grateful that I'm able to go kayaking and walk my dog Chewy and do the things that I love to do, because we just come from a place of I hate myself, I hate my body, it's so gross, it's so disgusting, and we don't recognize and show gratitude for how much it's actually doing for us, because things could always be a lot worse. Your legs could give out and you're not able to walk again, or you could lose a limb, or, so just think about that. Like, so be grateful for where you are. So number 5, the way that journaling is going to help you feel more confident is it's going to allow you to practice gratitude for your body. And that's one of the things that I want you to do, because that's really, really important. So let's just recap real quick because we're getting towards the end of today's episode. So, how daily journaling can boost your confidence and your body image. Number 1, it clears out the mental clutter that's holding you back inside of your brain. And it's going to make room for positivity and things that you want in your life, because you can't go after your goals and your dreams, no matter what they are, when your brain is so consumed by negativity and mental chaos and clutter. So it's going to, number 1, clear out the mental clutter. Number 2, it's going to silence the inner fat girl. We need to get rid of her. We need to get rid of those thoughts that are constantly telling us how nasty and gross our bodies are, because we don't have time for that. Number 3, it increases your self-awareness. Number 4, it helps to identify emotional eating triggers. And number 5, it allows you to be grateful for your body. And so all of these things that are benefits of daily journaling, they all help to boost your confidence and boost your self-esteem. And the only way to really work at this, it's like a muscle. You have to do this every single day, because when you don't do this every single day, just like a muscle would, it's gonna shrink down, it's gonna get weak, and then you're gonna have to build it back up again. So working on this emotional weight loss, it is a daily commitment that you need to do. And just this simple act of journaling is a great way to get started. And so, you could do this with a notebook, clearly, keep it simple, get a plain notebook. But you can also do this with my brand new Irresistible You journal, which is now available on Amazon.com. And if you have Amazon Prime, there is 2-day free shipping available. So I would highly recommend that. And if you don't have Prime, you can usually get a 30-day free trial. So, of course, I highly recommend the Irresistible You journal, because I have created daily prompts inside of the journal that go along with body image and confidence and the Irresistible You framework that we talk about here. And so I feel that that's a really great way to hone in on all the things that we just talked about, so that you can boost your confidence and break down those body image barriers, so that you can create that life that you crave. And inside the journal, there are several every day there is a motivational quote that will get your day started. And yeah, so I'm going to put all the links to the journal and even the Amazon Prime free trial. I will put all of that in the show notes so that you have access to it. And I would love to know how journaling is working for you, and show me your journal. Whether you have the Irresistible You journal or whether you're doing it somewhere else, make sure on Instagram, that's the best place to find me and interact with me online, is Instagram. I post all the time on Instagram stories and on the feed. If you tag your stories and or your pictures #IrresistibleYou, I will be sure to stop by, say hello, leave a comment, and even reshare some of those things on my own feed. Make sure if you do that, I'm following you, or your profile is not private. Because if it's private and we're not following each other, I can't see what you're posting. All right, so that is going to be all for today. Thank you so much for rocking out with me here on the Irresistible You podcast. If this resonates, if you're feeling it, could you please do me the biggest favor ever and go over on iTunes and leave a rating and review? That is such a big help for allowing others to find the podcast. And I hope that you have an amazing week and stay irresistible.